Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
In the studio with us today, all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, which really wasn't that far. I guess Mount Juliet for you.
Mount Juliet.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
In the studio with us is Dan Shafer. Now, you may know the name, you may not know the name. You would know the name if you watched The Voice, especially season 11. You wound up on Team Blake.
Yes, sir.
With that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you've also done just about everything. When I started to read your bio to put my show notes together, I went, I don't even know where to start. There is so much information here. So anyway, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate you and being here. It's on
a Saturday morning, on a beautiful Saturday morning. We should be outside instead of
that would be
here.
nice.
Yeah.
At one point, that might be an option for you.
Yeah.
You know?
You never know.
But, but it's good to be here.
How'd you get your start in the business? How did you get that start? And was it here in Nashville, or where did you come from originally?
No, I'm originally from Connecticut. So like most of my predecessors and mentors and folks like you and everybody, I think everybody really, I started out in the clubs and in throughout Connecticut, and originally from Torrington, Connecticut, and then you start in your little hometown. Then from there you go to Waterbury. Then from Waterbury you go to Hartford, and next thing you know you're doing your whole state. And then from there you're doing the region, tri-state area. Then going into New York, and you find yourself starting to play all over the place. But that's how I got my start, playing in club bands, playing. We were playing probably about 4-5 nights a week, anywhere from 4 or 5 hours a night, and I think that's where I started anyway, and it was a great place to cut your teeth, which I think for most people that I know, that's where they have cut their teeth as well and got their experience.
Did you come to Nashville with the intent of being a songwriter, or were you looking for a recording career, or what was your goal at that point when you came here?
Well, that's a long story. But my goal, I guess, here was to come and just do session work and be a session guy. So I had chosen family over a lot of other things. Because by the time I was 15, 17, 18, I was already asked to sing with other major bands. And I did so for a little bit. I was the lead vocalist for the group Orphan on Polygram and all of that. But then I had gotten married, and it kind of changed things for me because we had our first, son, Jamie, and, it just was difficult being away for long periods of time. So a friend of mine, Al Anderson, was doing a lot of television work, jingles. He was doing Cheerios, not a lot of way to weigh them down, Cheerios. Anyway, Michael Bolton was doing Kodak, Daddy's Little Girl, and Jolyn Turner was doing Budweiser commercials and all that. And they said, Dan, why don't you try doing jingles, and it might be a better lifestyle for you. Because Al was coming back and forth now to Nashville to start writing. He was pursuing more of a writing career because he was with NRBQ and, from Connecticut as well. But anyhow, long story short, started doing jingles heavily there and then started doing session work. But things started to diminish. And as the jingle market started to shift and change, and all of that. So several friends up there, that were from Nashville coming back and forth said, man, Nashville would be a great place to raise a family, great place to, earn a living. David Briggs was a producer here. him and a couple other fellas had said, why don't you come on down to Nashville, and we'd probably use you and you'd be able to do well as a session fella. So I came down for about 8 months or so. My wife and I had separated. That was a difficult time too, because, as in any business or entrepreneur, that it's a difficult task. So, but I started working right away, and so I started singing. A friend of mine, Chris Rodriguez, was gracious enough to pull me in, on, the Emmanuel record. I did Eli. I did a lot of Christian records, and then I had met Chuck Howard, and then Chuck, after hounding him for a while, said, okay, come on in, so I started working with John Barry, and then, Trini Triggs, Jeff Carson, and it just kind of blossomed from there. I mean, in my heart of hearts, I've always just wanted to be an artist. I mean, I just wanted to sing, and but I was blessed to be able to do session work, and I loved it anyhow. That's why I love Jingle so much, because you could be Beatles one day, another day Led Zeppelin, another day Harry Connick Jr., and it was just, if I had my way, I'd be doing that for the rest of my life. But that was my reason for coming to Nashville, I guess. The session work was a lot greater here than it was in New York. That market started to diminish. It was more rap, hip-hop, which really don't use session guys for that. At least me, guys like me anyhow. And California or Los Angeles wasn't really, an option either. And but so Nashville was the natural place.
When you talk about jingles, I mean, it actually goes a little deeper than that, the session work, because when I started looking at your storyboard of what you've done, I mean, Coors, BC
Light.
Powder.
Yeah.
But then you also get into things like Transformers, Gen 2,
right.
Aliens 3.
Yes, sir.
How did that come about?
Well, it's just like anything else when you're hustling. It started out, I had already some names because I had Matchbox and with a fellow named Jerry Plotkin, and so the toy stuff was already on my peripheral. I was already, trying to build those relationships.
And when we say Matchbox, we don't mean Matchbox 20. We mean Matchbox, the toy car.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, forgive me. Yes. Yeah. Matchbox Lightning Key Cars, to be exact, was my first national commercial. So, in fact, my son, Jamie was so excited. He called me. I was working in a deli. Dad, turn on the TV, And I turned it on. There it was. Al had given me a couple names, fellas he'd been working for, so I started calling them. But as you know, you have to start doing footwork now, because it's one thing to be on the phone. Now you have to start being a grunt, doing the grunt work. So I was working 2-3 jobs at the time. So on Wednesdays, I would kind of take the day off, and I would start going into Manhattan, because I was living in Connecticut. So it was about, anywhere from 6 to 8 hour commute every time you had to go.
Wow.
It's an hour and a half down to South Norwalk. You have to catch a train in South Norwalk, from South Norwalk into the city, and then you got to walk, 4, 5, 10, 11 blocks, whatever, or try to catch a subway or whatever, and then back again, It started Wednesdays, and I would start, up by 57th, and then work my way down. But then what turned out to be, I just made a route for myself. Got a list of all the Jingle houses that were in that particular area, and I would just start showing up every week, and just having coffee, getting to know the receptionists, getting to know people in the office, just hanging out. And after a while, people would just say, well, who the heck is that guy that's here, But one day it started, then it turned into 2 days, because then I would go down from Chelsea down to, wherever, and so on. And then so eventually what had happened, I was at a particular Jingle house, because I don't even know if they're still there anymore, and one of the fellas didn't show up. So in a group 3, which means there's 3 singers on it, they turned it to a group 2 because they couldn't, so there was only one. In other words, there was only one person there, so they brought me in. So I ended up singing Transformers, Robots in Disguise, which was my first, really, SAG-AFTRA. In fact, I had to sign what they call what they call a Taft-Hartley letter, because, I wasn't a Screen Actors Guild member.
Right.
Any of that, because in that same week, the day after that, I ended up doing the demo for Aliens. 3, the motion picture, the voice of the aliens and all of that for the commercials that were coming out.
Did you have any idea how big those films were going to be at the time?
No, not at all. I mean, I understood Transformers and I knew Aliens, the first few movies, and I had known a few other fellas, Joe Sarasano and other great jingle singers that were known during the 80s that had done the original commercials and the Saturday morning cartoons, you know. So Generation 2 came because they were revitalizing that. So I was blessed to be a part of that. I mean, I didn't realize it. In fact, you know, like I said, to this day, that's probably the largest thing I've ever done. Unfortunately, though, there's no recognition for that. You can Google search, you can call Screen Actors Guild, you can call all that, and there's never any credits for any of the commercials. And to me, and I'm not saying this about myself, but the guys that do session work, the guys that do jingles, those guys are like special forces. I mean, they have like 15 minutes or so to acclimate themselves, to understand that storyboard, and then start coming up with ideas. You only have seconds, really, to think about melodic structures, arrangements, because behind you there's 2 other guys. They're going to come in and make a pitch, too. You know, it's not just, you know, coming in for a session. When they're doing a major campaign, like when I did Fruit and Fiber, I guess it was, you know, and I mean, there was 2 other great other fellas behind me that, because when they're not sure of where they're going, whether they're going into rock direction or they're going into a comical direction, or if they're going, you know, they're not really quite sure. So they might have 3 or 4 pieces of material that writers are demoing too. They're making a pitch at this time. It's really difficult because you never know whether you're going to get it because it's still a demo. You know, it's in a demo stage. In fact, the company or the manufacturer or the product line will go ahead and actually maybe get 3 different, you know, jingle houses. You know, the ad agency will go out now, maybe have 3 different jingle houses that are all going to fight for that campaign. It's a long process, but once you get in that process, it tends to snowball.
Does it pay well? I mean, is it worth the time and the effort, or do you just consider it a step? I remember there was Frank and George Sims who did like Let's Dance, but Bowie records, and they were working with Nile Rodgers and a lot of other stuff, and they were still doing major records. But I remember there was a conversation. Sometimes you have the conversations, you know, while you're waiting, having your coffee or whatever, and says, "Man, where's Frank been? I mean, I haven't really seen him." Well, that's because he started doing commercials, and it's like, why would you want to go and do a record? I mean, it depends. Now, I'm not saying that to diminish any of that, but the amount of money that that you would make on a national Screen Actors Guild, then later it joined with AFTRA kind of a thing, but the amount of money that you would use on a national commercial like that, you wouldn't earn, and I don't even know, in probably years of doing a record. So wow. It
would take a while. You know, so commercials were much more viable and much more financially sound than records too. Because records, I mean, you'd be hanging around for all day sometimes, you know, waiting.
How many commercials could you cut in a day?
I've done as many as 3
in a day.
Yeah, there's others that have done more. I mean, yeah. I think your intuition gets better as you start moving forward. You start taking more out of a direct role in guiding. This is my suggestion, my thoughts. I think this might be a good thing to try. May I suggest this?
You kind of get your footing underneath you.
Yes, you actually start becoming more confident in what you're doing because you've done it and you see what's already being. You know where the market is, basically. You know, you see what's being cut. You see what's being. You know, that's why to this day, I still go to my grave saying that the market is 65, 66 to about 76, 77. Why? Because I based it on the television commercials that were being done, the styles that they were being done. Now there are no television commercials. I mean, there's local stuff, there's regional stuff, but I'm talking about Pepsi-Cola, McDonald's, Coors Light,
And I think the originality, I think the originality of those is not what it used to be.
No, it's not.
It's all computer generated, and they throw it out there. And
yes, sir.
And after about the 3rd time of watching it, I'm done.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I mean, I think to this day, I mean, even you know, I mean, most people our age or even young folks, maybe. I mean, it is an age demographic thing, but you could probably remember the theme songs for your favorite movies, or, you know,
or TV shows.
TV shows, rather. You know,
I just read an article this morning about the Ventures in Hawaii 5-0.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize this at the time. Until I read this article, they were nothing but an instrumental band. That's all they were.
That's all they,
And they were huge, especially like over in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
They were the best-selling instrumental band of all time, and I believe they still hold that record over there. So.
Wow, that's incredible. But, you know, getting back to what your statement about the originality, I don't believe there is any more there's originality, but it's not being lifted up, I guess, if that's the right word.
Yeah, I think it's not being pursued like
it could be.
Yeah.
We're piggybacking, we're emulating what exists, kind of a thing. I mean, that has always been kind of a thing. It's like, well, hey, you know, Curb Records has a Leanne Rimes, so you know, we're over here at, you know, Warner Brothers, and we better try to find somebody that's like a Leanne, you know.
What we always called a hat act.
Yeah, just
as long as you fit the hat. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always been that sort of, you know, people were looking for the next whatever. They also developed that artist to allow them to start finding themselves, and you know, they eventually became themselves, and they were different. Beatles are different than the Rolling Stones. I mean, you know, you can't...
and that conversation still goes on today.
It still does.
Yeah.
You know, but yet they're still the same type of band, still format, still from England, but they're not the same band. No. Neither is the Moody Blues, and neither is, you know, whatever. It's just not that way. I don't think that... I know we're drifting from jingles to just in general, but it touches that nerve about creativity. I think a lot of, you know, the computers and a lot of, you know, the ability to quantize, or the ability to cut and paste and lift and tune, and I think that was the demise. You know, it's great for editing. I mean, when you were recording with 2-inch tape, you probably know this, Bob. I mean, you'd have to. These guys were surgeons, man.
Oh,
I mean,
were they ever?
They could sit there and cut a little piece, tape it out of someplace else, or you know, or cut tape, knew exactly where to do it. You know, and
you're right. They were craftsmen at that.
Yes, engineers were craftsmen. See, I think that's the difference. You know, a producer was a producer. They were a leader. They understood. They always had their right arm man, which was a great engineer who knew. Then they worked together as a cohesive unit. Then you had all these, you know, you had publishing. Then you had all these different entities. Whereas today, well, hey, I'm a producer. I'm a writer, too. I'm also an engineer. Hey, guess what? I'm a solicitor, too. We can all do those things, just like my bio. Yeah, I've done all those things, but they were all focused on writing, vocal, maybe production, because you get to do that stuff. But, you know, the whole publishing thing, or everybody has a skill set that is focused on that particular genre of industry, you know, or genre of, or part of that industry. And I don't think we have that anymore. You know, I remember seeing the trend back, you know, several years ago, you know, attorneys all of a sudden became managers, or became, you know, engineers, or engineers became producers. And that's a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of great engineers that are great producers. But I guess my whole point is that you have to acknowledge your weaknesses, at least see them, and find someone else who's always better than you. And you know, that goes back to the creative side of what I was saying. You know, if you're always surrounding yourself with great people that are better than you, then you're always striving to get to another level, right, another place, or learn something, or be humble enough to say, what can I do? But I think today it's not about creativity. It's how can I sexualize myself, or sexualize this or that, or how well can I dance, or how can, you know, it has nothing to do.
It's that 15 seconds of TikTok.
Yeah,
is really what it is.
Yeah,
and that's what it's come down to.
I agree.
We used to say you had your 15 minutes of fame, and now it's your 15 seconds of fame. And yes, you may have 2 million or 10 million likes, 200,000 likes, whatever that number is. But is it sustaining, and is it consistent? And that's the big thing.
I don't think that it is. You know, going back to what I said earlier, how you know, the first question, how did you get started? You've got folks that instantly believe that they can jump on a television show and become instantly a star. But the problem is that they have no foundation.
Yeah.
I've met artists that various, because I started writing a lot too for folks, and I would meet artists that never sang in a club, or they may have, but they never did covers. They were always trying to be doing their own music. They didn't do the trench work. So how can you control an audience? How can you go out, be a Garth Brooks or
Taylor Swift or Beyonce or whoever?
How can you do that? But they did the footwork.
Yeah.
I mean, they did the trench work.
They hustled.
Yep. I mean, you have to go out and do covers, and it's like going back to Jingles. How do you know in 15 seconds? You have to have an internal clock of knowing, man, I'm approaching that point where I need to explode at this point, or I need to calm down, or like in the clubs, you'd spend all day, all night long getting people to the dance floor. But after a while, they can't stay there, so you have to calm them down, let them go to the bathroom, let them go get a cocktail. So you do
take a breath.
That's right. But now how do we bring them back?
Yeah.
Well, you bring them back with a slow song, because now a fella wants to dance with a girl, and he's been eyeing her, or she's been eyeing him. Hey, you want to dance? And right after that, though, bam, you better go right after, keep them on that dance floor, because now they're connected, kind of a thing, I don't think that may seem silly, but it's all the creativity side. I just, you have no foundation. I mean, there's just where do you grab those seeds of creativity? You can't. So, even though Taylor Swift is great, and, Beyonce might be great, and this and that, and you're a new artist, but if that's all you're focused on, and that's all that you're going to be pretty limited, and there's no sustainability there, I think, But anyway, it's just one of those things. That's there again, go back to Jingles. I love Jingles because of the creativity that you had to be. It was something that I was good at, because I loved all forms of music. I mean, listen to Tammy Wynette. I mean, listen to Engelbert Humperdinck, or, listen to Led Zeppelin, or the Partridge Family, or the Cowsills for that matter. I mean, it didn't matter to me. They were all wonderful,
In the studio with us here in Nashville, Tennessee, Dan Shafer.
Ain't got no time to think of the pain when I hear you say you're walking out on me. 'Cause you don't care how you bring me down, mess me around. To you, it's just another day. Does your heart be like the real thing? I wanna hear it, pretty baby. Does your heart be like the real thing? Does your heart be like the real thing? How does it feel? Like the real thing?
Yo, what's going on, everyone? This is Vinny Potestivo, and check out my episode of The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena. And believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives. Whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
I want to talk a little bit about your I do want to talk about the television show aspect of things,
Sure.
talking about The Voice, but I want to go in a little bit of a different direction. Along with jingle writing and songwriting and session work, you've also done some work with some pretty amazing talent legends out there. Artimus, Pyle, Vinny Appice,
Carmine. Yeah.
Carmine.
Mm-hmm.
The live stage, the touring thing, that I guess we talked about this when we got together some weeks ago. The classic rock all-stars.
Yes.
That type of a field, is that something that you enjoy doing? You got into it?
That was my original, dream, or goal, or it's an honor to play with a lot of these folks. I mean,
Well, when you think about the caliber of someone like Carmine Appice or his brother Vinny or Artimus Pyle, those kind of guys, I mean, they set the groundwork for the rest of us.
They sure did. I mean, those were my mentors. I mean, those were the people that, influenced, not only me, but I mean, rock and roll. I
remember seeing Carmine when he was with Ted Nugent, and this might have been like 80, 81.
Okay.
And I was just totally blown away by his playing, going, Nugent was great.
Oh, yeah.
But then to see Carmine and you go, holy cow, who is this guy?
He's a showman, man.
Yeah.
He's twirling his, he's just a showman.
I think his drum set even rotated on stage, But yeah, you're right. They were showmen back then, but they knew how to do it.
Oh, yeah, they sure did. I mean, like I said, I've been blessed to share the stage with a lot of different folks, everybody from, Dolly Parton to, as you say, Carmine or Artimus, or we just did a show at the CMA Theater, which was probably one of my favorite venues I've ever been into, but, you had Colin Ray there, Dolly was there. I sang with the Artimus Pyle band, and there was, Linda Davis. So, I mean, you kind of stuck out because you're the rock band. Everybody else but you find that audience, is the same audience that listens to the Doors, but they also listen to Hank Jr.
But they were receptive, right?
They're receptive.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. For that particular show, we had 2 standing ovations. I mean, it was just you don't see that too often. I don't see that too often. Maybe they do, but I don't.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful experience. I do enjoy that very much. In fact, that's why kind of segue into The Voice. I mean, that's why I agreed to do The Voice. All our boys are grown, and 2 of them are gone. My 3rd son is getting married this year in August. So, in fact, he's bought his home. They're already planning, so we're empty nesters. So back in 2016, it was the 2nd or 3rd time that it was suggested that I do the show. I said, yeah, sure, I'll go, but Sherry and I spoke about it, I'm at an age now, well, hey, God has kept my voice. I'm better now than I was when I was, teen, 20, 30, 40, 50, so I thought, well, okay, I'll do it.
Did you feel you were too old to go on to The Voice, or was that even a discussion?
No, it wasn't. I mean, I think they were wise in doing it. I mean, it's what they needed to do, really. During that particular season, or 2016, there was no American Idol, there was no X Factor, none of those shows were, so they wanted to at least grab that audience. And the audience, and if you notice all those shows now, I mean, you have to have classic rock, classic soul, classic R&B. You have to, because that's the market. That's where the market is. Market is 66, to 76, 77. Yeah, there's a lot of young people out there, but that's not sustainable. That's not where your disposable income comes from. That's not the people that are, really, I mean, from my perspective, and their goal is to be able to expand their commercial value.
Right.
So, if you're getting, I'm just using an example of $30,000 for, a 30-second spot, your goal is to get $100,000 for that 30-second spot, and the only way to do that is your audience growth. So when you go from, maybe a 15, 17 share to almost, 28, or you had, they had to. So I mean, in that particular season, you had Billy Gilman, you had I mean, you had people that were already successful.
That had success in their careers
prior
at one time.
to.
Yeah.
That's right. So, and it was. I remember when we were going to do our battle with Sundance Head, and we did Feel Like Making Love at rehearsals. I remember the producers from NBC saying that was the most anticipated battle that they've had for that show. And I think it was because they don't do rock and roll. They don't really do. I mean, there's a sequence of songs that they do, but they wouldn't do a song like that. And I think it was because of maybe getting back to the age thing. It's my age, but it's also my wheelhouse.
And it makes perfect sense anyway.
It makes perfect sense.
And then you have someone like my wife who's watching the show.
That's right.
And even our kids who are watching the show. And you're fitting those demographics because that's the music they can relate to.
Exactly. In fact, the next day, I mean, that song went to number 4 in the country. iTunes charts and so forth. I mean, right under Bad Company at number 3, and you had Joan Jett and everybody else. But I mean, to have all of a sudden to have a band like that. I mean, if you watch that season, they eventually had Kiss. They had. I can't remember everybody now. That because Sundance ended up winning the show, and I knew that too. But the thing is that opened up the door for a lot of other things, and that's how you grow.
Did you see yourself becoming a member of Team Blake? I mean, was that pretty obvious from the beginning over the others that were on there?
No.
Yeah.
It wasn't at all. I mean, without going into a lot of their stuff. But my choice was Adam, but Adam's team was already being filled up. I'm grateful to be on anyone's team, really.
Right.
I mean, because at that point now, but, even if you get on a team, there's no guarantee that it'll air.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. Yeah, because they narrow it down to, the 40, 48, whatever it is. But no, not everybody gets aired. I'm blessed, too, that I didn't have to go through that process. I mean, but I went direct.
Because it is a bit of a cattle call.
Oh, yeah, it's a cattle call. They'll go into, a major city, and then they'll have 8,000-10,000 in a venue during a weekend.
And you're right, and they can't air even 10% of that on the show.
Yeah, and even the people that get on the show is what I'm saying. Not everyone's going to get aired.
Right.
You can't conceivably. Some of them aren't going to be. There's only so many people that are going to be on. Aired. So there's no guarantee even you get aired. Even if I got on Blake's team, that particular show, there's no guarantee that it was going to be aired.
And we don't realize that as viewers, that the intricacies of all of that's going on. And you really are giving us a behind-the-scenes look of all that.
Yeah, I hope I don't get in trouble for it. But I think a lot of that's open information, too. I mean, anybody, I think a lot of it is. That's why I'm being delicate about it. But, I mean, it's a television show. I mean,
and that's
you have to prepare for that. You don't just sit there and say all of a sudden the whole thing is live or this or that.
And I think that's a misconception with a lot of.
You can't conceivably do that.
Yeah, they're going to show up to what we call the cattle call.
Right.
Like you said, there's 8,000-10,000 people, and I've seen those lines around the block. And like you, I've received phone calls from line producers who have said to me, we're looking for someone out of the normal, or somebody out of the ordinary. Do you have somebody? And I remember it was, I think it was America's Got Talent. We got a phone call from a line producer, and I said, yeah, I've got this one particular artist. I think she'll fit what you're looking for. And so she bypassed that whole line of obviously 8,000 to 10,000 people, went down to Hollywood, did her private audition, and still didn't make it. It's very, very competitive.
Well, even if you get to the point where you get asked to go to California, after you go through even the private one, I mean, you still have the powers that be that you're going to have your NBC audition.
Well,
but you at that point you got even then you've got about 300 people. It narrows it down to even lesser and lesser and lesser. So, I mean,
we have to remember it's television,
right?
And they're going to really kind of mold that and fine tune it to where it fits what they want. Because guess what? It's their show.
It's their show.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to segue into commercials. They have to figure out, there's a lot of things that go on. Each one of those storylines and segments, and I mean, they have to be able to record those things, have enough time to edit those things, piece them together so they have a continuity there that's,
And guess what? They're doing it every single week.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like a film where you can take, 6 to 18 months to shoot and edit.
Oh, so
this is something that's going on every 7 days.
Oh, yeah. They're doing it every day.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole process. Because if you're doing 2 shows a year, I mean, that's a lot of editing.
Yeah, 2 seasons a year, right?
2 seasons, yeah. Two shows. Forgive me, 2 seasons. I'm calling them a show, but season 11, and on next thing, but right before it in the springtime was season 10, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's a little unusual too, but that's what these shows are doing now.
Right.
Dancing with the Stars, or like I said, America's Got Talent, or whatever those are. They'll do 2 seasons a year, which is kind of the norm now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they have to. I mean, you don't want to get caught unprepared. I mean, those slots, a lot of, television commercials, all those slots, everything is being bought and paid for, airtime, all that stuff. It's business. I mean, that's what you're soliciting. You better have product, or you better have...
And you better have good product.
You have to have good product.
Yeah.
Otherwise, guess what? You're dropped. Kind of like, no names mentioned, of current shows that just were released and all of a sudden canned and dropped. I mean, if you're not going to meet the public's needs or desires, or
and there's too much out there already. I mean, we've got
flooded.
It is so flooded,
and that goes back to it's what you were talking about, the creativity of things. I mean, there's so many things that I think are obvious to me that aren't being executed, that if they just did it, I know that the audience is there to partake and enjoy it. And you'd have yourself a massive, I mean, I won't share with it now, but I mean, sometime we'll have a talk on that. But I mean, there's things that they can do, but they're not doing it.
Yeah.
They're not seeing it. And that's okay. That's how entrepreneurs, that's what I love about Shark Tank. We used to watch Shark Tank all the time religiously. I loved it. I loved Mark Cuban, all of them. I loved them. They were great. Mr. Wonderful was great too.
Yeah.
You're dead to me. Hey, but that's what's so great about entrepreneurs. I mean, they're doing it because of a passion, but it's more than a passion. Everybody wants to be a singer. Everybody wants to be a writer, but there's millions of you out there. What's going to separate you from everybody else? And you better start doing your homework.
And I love what you said. It's becoming the entrepreneur on top of everything else.
Everything else. You have to be.
Yeah. And I don't think we look at that direction very often. What you said, well, I want to be the singer, or I want to be the songwriter. Yes. And what is going to separate you? So if you become that business person, if you become that entrepreneur that goes along with being the creative side of the industry,
yes, now
all of a sudden you're setting yourself apart. Why do we think Gene Simmons from Kiss is so dang successful?
Gene is
when you look at the marketing machine behind him with Kiss, I mean, you talk about someone who took it to the 10th degree and beyond.
Oh, I mean, every time I don't get too starstruck over the years that a quick story, I was recording with Orphan with them. I was singing with Orphan, and we were recording at the Electric Ladyland in New York City. And Paul Stanley came in while I was cutting vocals and asking who I was and this and kind of thing. But just being in the same room with these fellas, it just, I don't know, I can't explain it. It has nothing to do with their talent. It has nothing to do with. It had nothing to do with, because I don't even really like Kiss all that much. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just not my cup of tea.
Your cup of tea, right?
Yeah,
sure.
But I was blown away and in awe of him and Gene because of what you just said. They're marketing strategies. They were businessmen. They didn't just sit there and say, well, I want to be a star and have everybody suck up to me and this and that. They're going to do that anyway because that's human nature. People always want to be hanging out with. But they were businessmen. I mean, between lunch boxes and toys and, my gosh, they were a marketing, everything. They took their success to the nth degree, and that's what blew me away. But to get back to what you were saying, I don't think most people think that way. Tom Petty was that way. I've watched for the third time Running Down a Dream. It's like a 3-4 hour movie. And there again, I wasn't always a big Tom Petty fan too, but I've turned out to be a huge Tom Petty fan because of it. I do like his music because I saw it grow from where he was to where he is. But the business side of him, really, I guess that excites me too. He believed in himself enough to just like go against, the machine, so to speak, or others, or at least stand up for himself, Right. And we have other examples of that in current days too, in the pop market, people that are just, they're business people and they're also creative, and they have to parlay that into something because we're only young for a period of time, and we're only,
That's right.
Our assets have to grow. It's more than just one thing, item. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here, so please forgive me.
In the studio with us today, Dan Shafer.
Make somebody smile. We're gonna make you shine. Step out in style. We're gonna make you shine. Shine, 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 shine. We're gonna make you shine.
You're listening to the business side of music.
As a musician, you have a dream, that vision of what success looks like for you. Though it's not only about the money, money is part of it. Whether you've been extremely successful or you're just striving to maintain a regular cash flow, you need a plan. Money Concepts can help you develop a customized plan to achieve the financial stability and success you want. For over 40 years, Money Concepts has been providing holistic financial planning services to individuals, families, and business owners. As an independent firm, Money Concepts and their associates are committed to always represent the best interest of the client. It's really about a committed, benevolent interest in them personally. This independence, coupled with that committed, benevolent interest, means they represent you, the client, not a product supplier. It's not about selling products, it's about helping you achieve success. To learn how this can benefit you, contact my buddy, John Adams, with Money Concepts at 737-867-9309. That's 737-867-9309. You can also email John at jadams@moneyconcepts.com.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Let's talk about what you've got going on now. What are you doing these days? You said you're an empty nester.
Yes, sir.
But what projects are you working on these days?
Well, I've got some shows coming up, but there again, just singing with the Artimus Pyle band. We just have a relationship, because I love Dave Fowler and fellas in the Artimus and everybody in the group, Scott and everybody. But so even when I open up for them, they'll come out and play with me, or I'm asked to sing with them or whatever. But I've just been enjoying going out and singing. In fact, Carmine asked me to sing with Cactus, and
how cool is that?
But it didn't transpire, because Paul was ill, and then
but
things
to at least
changed.
get that introduction or that phone conversation.
Oh yeah,
that in itself is, you got to go. Yeah, that's kind of a cool thing to happen.
Yeah. To me, that's where I've always wanted to be anyway. So, but lately it's been a lot of benefits and a lot of singing with other artists. I was hoping, and I still think, because like Bo Bice did it, he's singing with David Clayton Thomas.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was hoping that maybe I could just join in, and maybe still might be, just join in an existing group, because unfortunately a lot of the fellas that sang with a lot of classic rock guys just aren't able to do it for health reasons, or
I'm noticing that a lot, especially with our generation, that a lot of artists that we remember, our contemporaries,
yes, sir,
are retiring because it's just the time on the road, the time in the studio. It takes a toll.
It does. It really does. And most of my mentors are going to be anywhere from 67 to 80. And I know that's a hard reality for me, but that's the case, people, and we're losing people, so I'm going to still keep, moving forward as they come. I'm not striving for anything of that nature. I'm not, if it comes along, it comes along. So I like the calls that come now. So, but, I've been talking to another classic rock guy, but Henry Paul from the Outlaws,
right,
so, and then, he was with Black Hawk 2 and all that, talking about maybe putting together something. I don't know if it'll transpire or not, but.
Are you still writing?
Not very much.
Yeah.
I just, to be honest with you, I didn't see, okay, you write a bunch of songs, now what?
Yeah.
What do you do with them? If there's no live shows for you to sell those records to, how are you going to make money? You can get a cut with Tim McGraw, but what are you going to make?
Anymore.
I'm not saying that to be belittling Tim McGraw, or I'm just using that from a business perspective. And I never want to detour. I love to write. I surely do. But I just don't, it's a lot of hard work to write. I remember even writing sometimes 2-3 times a day with fellas. I was writing so much that I would bring in Tony Stampley or, Tommy Barnes or Chas Sandberg, just whoever. And but there's a lot of work into writing and the creating process of it. And I think that's another thing, there aren't that many good songs anymore, and it's just difficult to listen to a lot of stuff, and you want to go out and write and make it better, but is a singer going to be able to sing the songs that you write? If you're writing like me, I was writing for my voice, and that's why John Barry or, Colin Ray or guys like that, because they were singing like you are, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you got guys that are, doing like grunts, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't know. I don't write that way.
If you could do anything with these years that you have left, what would it be?
I would like to go out and sing. I really would. But I have a love for young people too. And I started a show called The Rock and Load Show. And really, because nobody's doing Don Kirshner, and this and that. And I think that was a great way to be able to not only bring in our classic rock friends, but to bring in new people too.
Yeah, the young kids today miss the after midnight TV shows.
Oh, my gosh.
The Don Kirshner rock concerts.
That's right.
That was... I remember coming home from a high school dance or a football game.
Yes.
And it would be like 11:30 at night, and you're sitting in your dad's Barca Lounger, and you didn't have remotes back then. You had to change the channel.
That's right.
It's hard to believe. And I remember one time watching it, and it was a group called Focus.
Oh, yeah.
Who had a song called, I think it was Hocus Pocus.
That's right.
And who in the heck are these guys?
Awesome.
And just mind-blowing. Never would have known about them if I hadn't seen that.
That's right.
That after midnight rock concert on TV.
A lot of acts got their start on, Fillmore East, Fillmore West, Midnight Special, Don Kirshner's rock concert.
I miss those days.
I
really do. Yeah.
That is something that I would probably would
we need it.
Get involved with.
Yeah.
When I created the Rock and Load Show, there was some interest. There's some folks that came down from New York, but they ended up, they couldn't see the bigger picture. They wanted to say, okay, let's turn this into a show that's looking for the next hottest session player. Why limit yourself to that?
Yeah.
This is such a big picture. There again, I think some will see it, some won't.
Yeah.
And I think that's where partnerships, and I've learned that too. You can have all the people that have influence or this and that, but if it's not a right partnership, it's regardless of whether they're influential or not. Are they going to be willing to work side by side with you? But those are things that I would get involved with, and because I think it's a way to mentor young folks, and what in their minds they might be great until you put them on the stage with greatness, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's
a good way to learn real quick, isn't it?
It's a way to learn real quick, like any other position, really. An old school guy, whether you're a mechanic or not, and you're a hotshot thinking that you can do this, until you see a guy that can actually, do it.
We all start out as apprentices.
We
have to remember that. Everybody.
Everybody. You have to.
Yeah.
If you don't go through that process, I think you're skipping all the blessings that you can have during that period of time.
Yeah.
And plus the relationships that you're building up during that time, and the humility of, and I think, you have to be humble enough to say, man, I really sucked. But then you have enough courage to say, hey, how can I make this better? What do I need to do?
That's great advice. I agree.
You don't. You got guys that don't even write, they don't even have, I think when we spoke, You have folks that don't even have set lists. They don't have, or they're reading off an iPad or this. They've never memorized their show. So this way they can control that audience. They're so focused on what am I going to do next? What song do you want me to play next? Well, we don't care. Play a song, do a show. You're here to entertain us.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're on the same page here. I mean, it's like you're here, we're paying you, or we're here, to have you entertain us. Unless you want to be a jukebox and someone's going to put a quarter in it, but then again, that's all you'll ever be. Then it's like being a side man.
I love that. That's great.
That's all you'll ever be.
Yep.
If you don't see beyond just playing that bar and I'm making money, because it's not about the money.
There's a lot of people doing that already.
Oh my gosh,
that's where the entrepreneur end of it steps in.
You have to be an entrepreneur and say, okay, I'm willing to take this risk, go without the funds, but I know the bigger picture is going to be an opportunity. There again, relationship, experience, all those other things are equally as viable as money, even more so.
It's like when you were talking about writing the jingles, you had a route that you followed. You would start on, would you say 57th Street?
That's right, up to 57th.
And just work your way down. And that's what you got to do to be successful.
Yep, you have to make that route. And, some folks just want to go from here to there. It's just like The Voice, you've got a lot of folks who just expect that to happen, but the realities are is if you don't already have something happening that you can hit the ground running once you get that 15 minutes worth of fame, you're doomed.
You're doomed.
You're not going to have anything.
Yep.
It's just that there's nothing there to solicit, because all that show really does, and it's a blessing, it's a wonderful thing, it shines light on something that's all of a sudden there. Right? But if you've got nothing to solicit, or you've got no career, you've got nothing happening, you can't expect that to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, you're right. That's.
I mean, that's what's that going to do for you? What, you sang 1-2 songs and you win? You sang 10? I mean, I don't know, but what's it going to do for you? Where are those winners right now? You have to ask yourself these questions. What advantage did they gain from that? Except for with other artists that came out of that from American Idol. Because they really wanted to focus that. They wanted to get theirs art. Well, you know the story. I mean, these guys were right there the next day. They won. They're in New York, man. They're already working with people and they're writing. That's not the way it is with other shows. The show's about the judges. It's about
that 15 minutes of fame.
Yep, that's about it.
Thanks so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, Bob, I appreciate it.
We could go on for hours.
We got to have. We're going to just start a whole. We'll start a whole series
just on this.
That's right, just on this. Yes. Look at me, aren't I great? Don't you love me? I love me too. Don't you love me? Why don't you love me? No. I love that Jeffrey Steele used to do that. I used to love seeing him, man. He'd sit there with a bourbon or scotch, whatever he was. He'd say, "Hey, you guys love me?" I love me.
I always remember Steve Holy saying, "Do you have any idea who I think I am?"
I love it though, you know, because they can sit there and laugh at themselves. Don't take themselves too seriously. I mean, Anyway, I know we got to go. Anyway,
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Bob. My best to you and your family. Okay.
Yeah.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.